Travis, one more time on the sound check.
Sounds good.
Thank you. You're live.
We're only missing Dr. Bone Break, and he's always just 1 minute off.
It is 6 p.m., so we'll call this meeting to order. Mrs. Lister, will you call the roll, please?
Reverend Williams,
Present.
Dr. Mickelson,
Present.
Dr. Morrison, Mrs. Boley, Mr. Munoz, Mrs. Stewart Campbell, and Dr. Bone Break. Somewhere.
It looks like we have a couple of young students who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If, Eddie and Paisley, are they ready to do that? We'll all rise.
Yes.
Focus. Ready? Are you ready? You have a flag, it's right on your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
That was the best pledge I have heard all year. And it's very special because you're the last two students of the year. I think your principal is on with us. Miss Sandrager, are you on? And would you like to say something about Paisley, our kindergartner, and Eddie, our third grader?
Absolutely. Paisley and Eddie are two of our all-time favorite Roadrunners. Their mom is probably the best para I've ever met, and every day I tell her she needs to be a teacher, so we're working on that. But Eddie and Paisley are hard workers, the nicest kids you will ever meet, and are just exactly what a Roadrunner is, the perfect example. So proud of you guys.
Thank you, Miss Sandrager. We know that Miss Crystal Thompson, and mom, who's a parent, Quincy, is also proud. At the board meeting, we pick a staff member and their children. I'm going to turn it over to the board to ask the two of you all questions if they have questions. Are you ready for questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions for young Eddie and young Paisley? Mr. Campbell, did you have one?
You did a great job. Here's my question. What are you going to do this summer? Because tomorrow's the last day, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll go to Worlds of Fun.
Great. Okay.
So do you two know what you want to be when you grow up?
Teacher. I want to be a police officer.
Police officer and a teacher. Those are two noble professions. We could use good people in both of those professions. Well, thank you so much for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Have a great day, last day of school tomorrow, and a wonderful summer, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Here's your certificate. Both of you all will be receiving this tomorrow. It'll be delivered to you. The first one is, it says Topeka Public School District recognizes Eddie Thompson for your service at the June 3rd school board meeting. And then we have another one that says the same thing, and Topeka Public School District recognizes Paisley Thompson for their service at the June school board meeting. I know it is so exciting. So we're going to deliver that tomorrow. And again, congratulations.
Yeah.
I'll turn it back on over to our school board president.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Next on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to do that.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Stewart Campbell offers a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? I don't see any, so we're ready to vote.
Vote is open. Foley, did you mean to mark abstain? You want me to change it? Sorry. Vote is in and motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mrs. Lister. All that sun you got today is too much. We don't have any school highlights, and public communications, we don't have any. So we'll next entertain a motion to dispose of business by consent.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of the board.
Thank you, everyone. So we have a motion. Do we have a second? There'll be a opportunity for discussion if you, yeah. Mrs. Boley offers a second. Is there any discussion, Mrs. Boley?
I noticed on there that we are paying some membership to Avid and that we have 7 schools on there. I know our DCAC last year was asking if we were going to maybe put some more on. I was just wondering if that was, if we added some this year.
Ms. Wallace, can you address what we're doing with Avid?
Yes, so at this time, the 7 schools are our 2 high schools, 4 middle schools, and 2 elementary schools that have Avid. And so at this time, we are not looking at adding Avid schools as Avid by content or, by license, but many of the concepts and ideas that Avid presents, we encourage and promote in all of our schools. Being college and career ready, promoting students going on to post-secondary education, and those kinds of concepts and ideas and strategies.
That's great. They have some really great strategies to help our students prepare for higher education. So thank you.
Are there other comments or discussion items? I just want to make note of 9.6 engineering services for bottle fill stations and air purifiers as part of the ESSER funds, I believe, is paying for this, but it's nice to see us invest in sustainable methods to provide water to our students, as most of them carry water bottles anymore. And so this will help provide that. I think there's going to be 2 bottle fill stations per floor, as I remember reading. So that's also good, I think. Okay, I see no other discussion. We're ready to vote, Mrs. Lister.
The vote is open. All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report, District Citizens Advisory Committee.
And much of this report really will be turned over to the DCAC. I wanted to give them enough time. I always give a brief update about pandemic related matters. We're going to go ahead and play a video that we pulled up that was on KSNT this week. It's very brief, featuring Miss Dela Cruz. We're so excited. Our math class at Highland Park High, Miss Dela Cruz is one of the top math teachers in the district and in the state, and has been helpful with the reopening plans for the state. Well, her classroom has developed an app to track COVID, and and they have a partnership with India that this app has been released to support the efforts in addressing COVID. We're going to turn it over for this 1 or 2 minute clip, and that'll be the entry into just sharing about our vaccination update and our final full day of school today as we prepare to close out tomorrow. I need to turn the volume either up or take it off mute.
News reporter Kelly Peltier shows us how it works. The app created by students here at Highland Park High School looks at 2 different countries and how they handled the COVID pandemic. One that did a good job of keeping COVID cases down and another that didn't. Now their goal is to get the app in the hands of people around the world so that they can learn different techniques to help end this pandemic faster. Students in Mrs. Dela Cruz's math class at Highland Park High are putting the final touches on a cell phone app they created themselves. Their hope is that it will help stop the spread of COVID by comparing the COVID prevention strategies of India and Zimbabwe, two countries that have handled the pandemic very differently.
Zimbabwe shutting down most of its infrastructure before it started spreading really helped a lot in the long run, while India hasn't really kept up with that.
The app has a library of information the different teams have researched, from techniques that have worked to keep cases down to techniques that have potentially contributed to a high number of cases.
And India is proof of one of those countries that, was against mask wearing and lockdowns and all that Zimbabwe has done, which has led to their pandemic spreading widely and a lot faster.
According to Johns Hopkins, India accounts for more than 1 in every 3 reported COVID cases in the world.
The India cases have increased exponentially, while the Zimbabwe is slowly flattening the curve.
Epidemiologists studying the pandemic in India say a variety of factors could be contributing to worsening situation in India.
Zimbabwe being a much smaller country, while India being a lot more populated than Zimbabwe.
The students are planning to publish the finished app so that anyone can download the app and learn about ways they can help slow the spread of COVID where they live. The groups will present their final projects at the end of the year to a group of local experts for feedback, and eventually they hope to present their app to classes over in India. Reporting in Topeka, covering local news that matters, Kelly Peltier, KSNT News.
So we are excited about how our young people have continued to just stay involved in addressing the pandemic. Many of you met Gilbert at some of the events pre-COVID. He's one of our college prep students. And so really seeing students actively involved in this space has been fantastic, which leads us to today. We had a vaccination clinic. We had excellent turnout at all of our schools. Middle school students went back to the same high schools they went to before, but we added a little twist. Today we had the undefeated softball team there at Topeka High signing autographs, and man, they signed a lot of autographs today. And so students had a chance to come to their feeder school, get an autograph, as well as get their COVID shot. We also had some people come and get their very first shot today. The next several series of shots will again continue during our pantry time at Jardine the first week of June and in July. And then lastly, today was preschool ceremonies. Now they were all at the same time. I think they wanted to see how fast I could move. And I learned that I couldn't get to them all at the same time. But we will say that today, Shaner and Pine Ridge, I know a board member was there. I was at Shaner, and many other schools had their preschool ceremonies today, yesterday, and then earlier we had our 5th grade. Tomorrow is middle school promotionals for those that would like to go there. That really kind of gives the overall update for this exciting final week of the school year and final days of the school year. The rest of my report, really, I am ceding over to the DCAC, who's done a year-long study. So I'll stop there unless there are questions for me regarding what I just spoke about. I'll turn it over to DCAC, and thank you all for presenting this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. I just want to confirm someone can hear me.
So they can. Yes, sir.
All right. My name is Sean Guile, and I have served this year as the DCAC Study Topic Coordinator. So I get the honor of introducing this topic to you tonight and then letting our stellar committee take over from there. I just want to touch on a couple of items. First of all, DCAC has for 45 years served as an advisory board to the Board of Education and Administration. And we do that in a number of ways, one of which is this study topic that you're going to be hearing about today. Each year, the DCAC leadership and the school board leadership get together, select a few topics, and then the DCAC makes a recommendation to the full board in the fall. And that is the result of the topic that we will study. And that is this year, mental health in schools amid COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. So I do want to, before I turn it over, give a couple of thank yous. I want to thank Mr. Scott Gowan with 501 for all of his support with our meetings over Zoom and our survey and a number of items like that. I want to thank our DCAC executive team. I want to also thank administration for their willingness to share staff with time for them to present to us. And with that, I am going to turn it over to the study topic committee to present our report.
We can't hear anyone yet, so we're just going to make sure that whoever needs to be speaking is off mute, and that individual, at this point, we can't hear you, just so that you know.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sanela Hasanovic Little, and my role was the chair of this committee. We have provided you with a finished report. However, we will present tonight in a shorter version. Nick will present methods. Teresa will present the research. I will do the discussion part, and Hannah will finally do the recommendations. So Nick, if that is okay with you, we start.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to begin, we took a multifaceted approach to get a better understanding overall about what all was involved, what questions to ask, and to better focus our research. So first was we did a literature review. We reviewed and analyzed multiple articles and other literature to assist in forming a uniform and clear definition of mental health. It allowed us to build a common understanding of, mental health as it relates to education, the current body of knowledge and practices regarding maintaining and improving mental wellness for students and staff, not just during, pandemic times, but even during normal times as well. So to begin with, we engaged in both events put on by the district this year. First, the Lowman Hill Night, Mental Health Night, that was focused on social emotional learning during remote learning. And the big highlight there was the importance of being in the moment, which was something that we came across rather frequently in our research, is critical to weather the frequent changes and other challenges faced throughout this crazy school year. Then there was the Title I night on mental health back in March, I believe, which featured 9 breakout sessions that covered a wide range of topics. And the ones that we were able to attend, we found that they were pretty good at, giving, those involved a good understanding, providing good resources, and were overall beneficial. We also participated in presentations by entities providing mental health services and resources to the school population. And this was done in order to gather a sense of the scope of research each is conducted and resources available to school communities. The first was by district employees, which focused on district resources and helped us get a better understanding of what was available at the different levels, different schools, and just better understanding overall. The second was by Myron Melton with KSDE, and he was able to guide us towards resources available at the state level. And then the big thing we did was we developed and distributed 2 surveys, one to parents and the other to staff members. For parents, our goal was to gather perceptions on the impact of the pandemic on mental health and an overall rating of services available to them. And then with the staff survey, we gathered perceptions on the climate throughout the district and support and services available to them as staff members. And then lastly, we conducted a review of the TPS website, looking at mental health resources and best practices and what was available. And while doing so, we also investigated the user friendliness of the sites, keeping in mind the varying degrees of technology access, users would have. Then I'll hand it over to Teresa for the results.
All right, I think I was able to unmute now. Thank you. Now we move on to results. So upon the review of the district offerings, including the events, presentations we received, and the website, we appreciated that the district did provide a plethora of mental health information. And we did also note that there was opportunity to increase accessibility of that information. The districts, the websites, both the district website and the school websites, the individual school websites are a little bit difficult, a little bit cumbersome to navigate, and specifically the mental health resources are not easily accessed on those. With the literature review, overall, the literature indicated that the pandemic has negatively affected the mental health of the general population, which is no surprise probably to any of us. The study group, as Nick mentioned, also reviewed many resources, including tools and strategies around mental health maintenance, building resilience, and crisis coping as well. Additionally, we reviewed literature that provided evidence that investing in the health of our district staff and employees will lead to healthy teachers, cost savings, and ultimately also positive impacts on students. So with the parent survey, the study group didn't necessarily seek to compare data between the English and the Spanish respondents. However, the data did reveal some significant differences between those two. So the proportion of Spanish responding parents who said that the pandemic has not impacted their students' mental health is nearly twice that of the proportion of English responding parents. So that stood out for sure. And overall, parents who responded to the survey in Spanish also indicated a higher average rating for the mental wellness of their students. Now, there is some qualitative data that we did receive within those surveys that may provide some insight to those diverging results. Regardless, the differences bring up the need to identify how much might be due to culture, how much might be due to availability of culturally acceptable and relevant resources. Ultimately, the study group doesn't have enough information right now, but we do believe that this needs to be further looked at and addressed. So further on the parent survey, we asked parents where they had sought mental health resources prior to the pandemic, if applicable, during the pandemic also, if applicable, and in the future, if the need arose for their child, where they would seek those mental health resources. And prior to March of 2020, parents of elementary students were much more likely to utilize those human resources at school, so their counselors or teachers, while the middle and high school parents preferred using the district website. Now, during the pandemic, as can be expected, that utilization of both the district and the school websites as mental health resources increased. And even at the elementary level, there was an increase there. And notably also, there was an increase across levels in the use of teachers as mental health resources. Overwhelmingly, parents of elementary students would continue to seek future support from their teacher or their counselor. However, there was a significant shift in middle and high school from those websites to those human resources for the future. So moving on to the staff survey. Staff reported to us that during the pandemic, they felt most supported in their coworker relationships and in having the technology that they needed, but they felt least supported in having the training that they needed to do their job. They were asked to rate the climate of their workplace from 1 to 10, and 70% gave a rating of 7 or more, which obviously leaves a 30% rating at 6 or less, unfortunately. But there were also multiple comments on the staff survey related to the need for accessible resources for staff and encouragement to use existing resources.
Very. Can you hear me now? Excellent. So it is time for a discussion. As we have seen, we have researched plenty of resources, different aspects in order to assess this topic. The district events we attended as a part of our research were perceived by the community in a positive light. The availability and organization of these events clearly shows the intention of the district to support mental health of students, as well as to provide the information to parents. In the survey we conducted, the TPS parents expressed a need for mental health resources and support. These events fulfill that need. In addition, and due to their online format, these events were easily accessible or more accessible when compared to in-person events. On the other side, we, the committee, felt that the efficacy of the events that we attended was potentially affected by communication, by the timing and the manner of communication, as well as accessibility. Let me explain. For example, the turnaround time between the district-wide communication and the date of event, it was too short on certain instances, and it was not allowing sufficient time for the parents to prepare and arrange for attendance. The accessibility-wise, although the recordings of these events are available, they cannot replace the active participation in these events and chance to ask questions or to participate in discussion. In addition, there are families who may not have readily available access to internet, so that is something to look into. Finally, the level of communication about these events, the advertisement, if you will, we found out that it varies between the schools and it's not uniformed. So, yes. The next one, we assessed the websites. We found a lot of wonderful, plenty of information on the district website. And it clearly shows the readiness of the district to address the mental health within the community. On the other side, while the information and the resources are there, we, the committee, we feel that our community, which includes students, families, and the staff, would actually benefit if it was presented in an organized and consistent way. And if it was cross-linked on the district level as well as among individual schools. In regards to mental health resources particularly, at least the basic information regarding the mental health offering or curriculum, staff, and the contacts should be made available uniformly across the district and the schools. For example, some pages may be blank right now, and we were not able to find the SEL curriculum, for example, which is quite opposite of other classes like mathematics or biology, science, etc. The presentations that we had a chance to see were excellent quality content, and they were well organized. And that is contrast to information that's available online. We feel that the standardized messaging and the availability of the resources is rather important for the efficacy of these presentations. Through these presentations, we learned that both the district and Kansas Department of Education, I guess, are focused on teaching SEL. But not only we were not able to locate SEL curriculum online, we learned that implementation of it is not standardized throughout the district, and that different schools have different resources available. And that kind of touches on our concerns regarding the equity. Finally, well, it's not finally, but here is a very interesting aspect that we came across while doing this research, although it was not within the original scope of our research, and that's the culture and its role in the mental health. Our survey results, as Teresa explained, imply a significant, it implies the significance of the cultural impact on the mental health. It showed the difference between the English and the Spanish-speaking communities in the perception of the mental health. For example, I may be repeating, Teresa, the impact of pandemic on mental health of students was way lesser in the Spanish responding parents, as well as they had a higher average rating for the mental wellness of their students when compared to the English responding parents. And again, these differences may point towards cultural influence. On the other side, it could point towards availability of perhaps culturally acceptable and relevant resources. Maybe that's the key. The workplace culture, on the other side, we found out that it affects not only the staff, but also students. And while not much research we were able to find on that particular topic, we did find some studies that show that positive correlation between the teacher's well-being and the student's outcome. So the workplace climate is very important. So the feedback that we received points towards the need of establishing employee wellness programs, which could improve their physical and mental well-being, and indirectly the students. And finally, what we feel is important, the common theme that we observed throughout all the research is the importance of both equity and equality among the resources dedicated to mental health. We defined equity as the ability to provide resources to meet individual needs, while quality would be the ability to universally provide resources. The feedback we received from the survey from the families speaks to the importance of meeting students and the families' needs equitably. Our analysis of this aspect shows that the district, the Topeka Public Schools district, has put forth good intentions to meet these needs of our families and the kids, but we do feel that that work is not complete. The equality of the resources is best shown by the feedback we received, which alludes to the lack of the equality in the curriculum implemented throughout the district through the grades levels. what we learned from the district presentation, the curriculum resources are available to be provided at every level, in every location. And now it is up to consistent implementation and reinforcement among the buildings on the building level and the grade levels to improve that accessibility to the families. I believe that is all. Hannah?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So all of our recommendations point to the need to ensure equity and equality as it relates to mental health. Therefore, we recommend Topeka Public Schools do the following. Continue offering mental health presentations, discussions, check-ins, and mindfulness as a means to increase familiarity and knowledge regarding mental health and possible struggles amongst individuals, peer groups, staff, and families. We think this should include daily modeling and practice, events offered at different levels on varying days and times in various locations and formats. We think repeating events on different dates, locations, and formats would be great, and utilizing district facilities throughout different parts of Topeka. We also recommend steps be taken to improve the cohesiveness and user-friendliness of the district and school websites. This should include a communication guide of sorts to summarize communication and include paths and links at the district and school level. It should also include a social media feed at the district and school level to provide increased access to events and resources offered, and a shareable calendar feature at the district and school level with filterable events by grade or content area or activity, and basic departmental and curricular information, including service offerings, curriculum overviews, staff and their contact information, and also a reorganization of staff contact information at the school level to include groupings and searchability by grade and content area. We also recommend providing diversity, equity, and inclusion training specific to mental health in an effort to increase cultural awareness, proficiency, and competency, conduct research on assimilation and acculturation in schools for family and staff, research the cultural impact on mental health perceptions and stigmas in relationship to specific cultural backgrounds, study the social and political impact on mental health, encourage professional development, collaboration, and autonomy, and seek both equality and equity of mental health for staff, students, and families. And again, when we're talking about equality, we're talking about providing those similar resources at all grade levels and campuses. So for this, we think the implementation of second step with fidelity throughout the district is of utmost importance, as well as utilizing the college and career competency framework uniformly. For equity, which is again providing resources based on demonstrated need, we think the continuation of implementing CIT3 with fidelity is important, and promoting employee assistance programs to address needs. We also recommend incorporating the development of boundaries and self-care strategies into professional development to be revisited frequently, including district and building leaders developing and modeling practices for their staff the same way that educators develop and model practices for students. Also, leaders should be openly discussing the importance, benefits, and challenges of self-care and healthy boundaries. And district and building practices should be implemented that support healthy work-life balance for all employees. We also recommend advocating for resilient strategies to help counterbalance adverse situations amongst staff and students that facilitate supportive relationships, build a sense of self-efficacy and perceived control, provide opportunities to strengthen adaptive skills and self-regulatory capacities, and more mobilized sources of faith, hope, and cultural traditions. And then finally, we recommend that Topeka Public Schools dedicate resources to a comprehensive employee wellness program that achieves the best demonstrated practices identified by Lever as listed here. In our full report, we further outlined these best practices and provided links to the study recommending and outlining them. But they include items such as tailoring a program to the needs and interests of employees, targeting multiple components of wellness, incorporating programs into the structure and culture of the work environment, also incorporating open and frequent communication between teachers and administration, and being mindful of periods of increased stress for teachers when a wellness program might be particularly needed, leveraging technology, integrating staff, student, family, and community wellness strategies, providing no or low cost options for school staff, and including screening and ongoing opportunities to help document needs and progress. So now I believe we're ready for any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the DCAC committee? Ms. Stewart Campbell.
Thank you, everybody. You all are amazing. That was really good. And I've read through the report prior to your presentation as well. And while I was reading through the report, I wanted to ask this, and I thought it came up some during your presentation, but if somebody could expand, when you talk about parents and using the website, okay, because the report mentions how in elementary, that parents are more likely to utilize the teachers and counselors for mental health. But once we get into secondary, that they're more likely to use the website. And I don't quite understand what that means. Does that just mean like clicking on resources or the hotline? Or if someone could speak to that, I would appreciate it.
I can give it a shot and then you guys can chime in and say what you think. But I think that Ms. Stewart Campbell, it's what you said, to get onto the website to find out what resources are available and where they should go. Whereas in the elementary, they would approach the counselor or the teacher to find out what to do next.
Are there more counselors available in grade school than in middle and high school?
Our counselor ratio is actually probably one of the lowest in the state. Increased that about 5 years ago. So we have, less than 200 to 1 students, which that's the national ratio is 200 students to 1 counselor. But every school has a mental health team, so they all have multiple counselors at elementary, middle, and high. They all have social workers at elementary, middle, and high. And then we have therapists and other staff as well. So I think part of the culture, and they certainly DCAC correct if I say this incorrectly, part of the reason of going to counselors more perhaps at the elementary is there's a very nurturing connection between teachers and counselors in that way. At the secondary, everything from texting is much more utilized. Cell phones are more in the hands of young people. And social media is really the way of interacting when you get
much less personal, however.
Much less personal. And students are more inclined to go to our tip line and send us items and to communicate in that way. That's what we've seen on an instructional side. I'm not sure if DCAC, if I've said anything in error. Mr. Giles, I know you have a secondary student.
Right. Well, recent graduate, actually.
Congratulations, a 4.0 recent graduate. I noticed that in the program. Congratulations.
Yeah, we were excited about that. But I think what you also see from previous studies that we've done and previous surveys is there's the relationship at the elementary level, the student and teacher are together so much of the time that there's a much closer relationship with the student to the teacher and the parent to the teacher than you get at the secondary level, where the student sees 3, 4, 5 teachers a day because the teachers are subject matter experts. So you don't necessarily have as close of a relationship. So that's one thing previous studies have shown, is there is that dynamic shift as to the relationship between everybody.
So there have been previous studies. What were the results of those studies? Just more counselors, or made the website more discommunicative, or what?
And Dr. Barbara, not necessarily on mental health, but they do a study every year, sir. And so as they do a study every year on different topics, the studies consistently address this issue of just the dynamic with secondary and technology. My apologies, Mr. Guile, you may want to add to that, but just for new members to know, this is an annual study. So they're going to research something else next year, and it might tie right on into what they're talking about today, but it might not be on mental health.
And we have in the past had multi-year studies. We did an enrichment series where one year we looked at pre-K through 5, and the next year we looked at the middle school. But really, I think one of the things that came out of this study was there's challenges with the communication, getting the message out consistently and timely. And this is a topic, actually, if you go back a couple of years, there is a DCAC study report that was specifically on communication between the district and the families. And I'm sure Dr. Anderson could arrange for you to get a copy of that if you were interested in reading it. But it's been a reoccurring topic over our study reports for a number of years, is there's this communications challenge.
One of the steps that the communications team and Mr. Gowan are taking this year is that's part of the reason from a pre-pandemic year. Their prior study is to adjust the website. The first piece, we actually started a website where you could have multiple languages. So where we are now is certainly better than not having all of those resources. But we need to continue to have the website as one of those areas to be as user-friendly as possible. So with that study from 2 years ago, Mr. Gowan has done just an exceptional job of looking at all of the resources available. And so in July, they will be live, a new website with Dr. Gray and Mr. Gowan and team, having really looked at sites that parents find really user-friendly with all the resources, much more at your fingertips. And they've really taken that report from 2 years ago to try to make sure enrichment and all those things are much more simplistic, and that all schools, while they right now have all the same landing pages, they might all look a little different. And so now really making sure there's greater consistency. So that's really what both teams are doing. And if I spoke in error, Mr. Gowan or Dr. Gray, please correct me. So that goes live July 1st from that study about a year or two ago.
That is correct.
And that's part of the equity and inclusion that we talk about in this study, is making sure that it's out there and it's available. And we appreciate the work that the district is doing on that. So I guess, are there other questions for us about this particular study topic, the mental health?
I think we do, Mr. Guile. Mrs. Boley, do you have a question?
So I was wondering, as you were trying to go through our web pages, what seemed to be the most confusing for your team to get to the sources that you needed?
I think, excuse me, one of the things that was most confusing or difficult to navigate was quickly and easily finding what you needed, or knowing a path to get where you needed, which is why we recommend some kind of communication path with links to various aspects of the website that's easier for families and parents to follow.
So you felt they were kind of buried within the school websites and the district website, or either one of the sites easier to use?
Yes, we found that stuff was buried or even missing in some cases, like on The counselor departmental website is completely blank. So there were just a variety of things that made it difficult in finding what you needed quickly and readily. There were some great things that were easy to find, and right there for you, but not everything that a patron or a family might need or student.
Thank you for the time and effort you put into this. I believe it's probably very important for our students and our families, particularly coming out of this pandemic year. So giving us some guidance in that area should be very life-changing for some people. So thank you for all your time. We appreciate it.
I just have a couple of comments. As I read this last night, it struck me how well done this was. And if we would have hired a consultant to do this, I'm not certain they would have produced such a worthy document. So thank you for your effort and energy in doing this. And as somebody who's written a couple of these reports myself, I understand the effort it takes, and especially just getting coordinated to make sure everybody's aligned and do it as a Herculean effort. A couple observations, questions for both the administration and for the committee. And for the committee, I guess initially, we accept, I think, as a public school district, the responsibility and the opportunity to provide mental health services for our students, but I think it needs to be a community effort. We're not in this alone. We see the students for 180 days a year. There's another several months that these students aren't in our buildings and with our faculty and staff. And so I just wonder if you have any ideas on other resources that are available to help our students outside of public education.
And I think we do have some great resources in our community for sure. And specifically speaking toward the website, I think as we're organizing and reorganizing the website, just again, linking those things together and helping to point parents and families to existing resources, whether they be within the district or outside and within the community. And that's just my initial thought. I think probably others on the committee might have other things to say.
Well, I would
think that's a good idea. And I don't know if our redesigned website takes that into account. Yeah, I think it's a collaborative effort between us and our local partners, mental health professionals, I think is important. So I'd encourage us to look at that as we move forward. The other observation I had is just the impressiveness of you looked at both parents and staff, and you didn't just limit it to students and parents' perceptions. So I'm appreciative of your diligence in looking at our staff and their mental health and well-being. And a question for our administration, I guess, is what resources do we have for our staff if somebody needs to seek mental help or guidance or advice? Do they have resources available to them that are without repercussions or stigma or things like that? Is there a hotline? Or I know Sanella and I work together, and I know we have one at our employer, offers free visits to a mental health professional if we feel the need. I just wonder, is that a resource available to our faculty and staff?
That is, and I know Mr. Robbins is on and he may want to speak to this, but we have the employee assistance program and individuals can access that confidentially. They get so many sessions. Mr. Robbins, do you want to add to that? And then I'll share on the school level what's available to staff as well.
Okay, thank you.
No, you were thinking along the same lines as I, Dr. Anderson, and that we do have an employee assistance program that has been in place for a number of years. As I listened to the report, something that we could certainly take a look at and probably should is just how well we communicate and make known that program and that ability to gain assistance when it's needed for mental health.
People can't access it, not aware of it. So I agree 100%. And I'm grateful that we have that resource available for our staff. The other statistic that struck me is 73% of Shawnee County residents, not just Topeka 501 residents, don't have, I think it was reliable internet. Is that right? Or their internet access?
I believe it was actually the other way. 73% have some kind of internet access and
That's
the
right, yeah.
remaining don't.
Yeah, and that's of all of Shawnee County. And so you would assume that we might even have a larger percentage of our patrons don't have access potentially. And so it illustrates the need for multimodal, and then going back to Mr. Giles' comments about a previous report on communication. The take-home message from that report from several years ago was the need to have multimodal methods to communicate, whether it's, when I was a kid, the teacher would pin a note to my shirt. You know, I'm not sure we're still at that, but I see some people in my generation that are smiling. From the marquee on the school lawn to social media to, you know, other ways to do it. And that's going to continue to be a challenge, I'm afraid, but something we need to continue to pursue. And then my final observation, thank you for the complete and comprehensive list of recommendations. I think as we look at our strategic plan and look at mental health and well-being, that this forms a template, if not more than that, I think, for things that we should include in our strategic plan for mental health and wellness. So again, superb job. Thank you so much for your effort and your comprehensive report and all the energy. I hope the effort was rewarding for you as it is for us to be able to refer to these reports from time to time and make and implement the recommendations you provided. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I just, before we go, I would love to say this was most wonderful experience for all of us, I believe. I'm speaking for all of us. And I would like to use this opportunity to express our gratitude, to say thank you to Dr. Gray and Ms. Carr and Mr. Scott Govan for their support and assistance in this project. It was tremendous project, and here it is. So thank you all. Thank you so much. It was rather quiet experience. Yeah.
We thank you for your entire team, and we know the amount of effort it takes to put this together. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
President Mickelson and DCAC members, as some next steps, because it's good to know when you finish a report like this, what's going to be the next step. And I'd like to propose a couple of next steps that we take. You know, the summer is a great time for planning and preparing. Before we know it, it'll be August and time to start. And on the heels of the pandemic, having some basic things in place, particularly since our new webpage is launched July 1st, but many of our mental health team members, which include Family Service Guidance, the Kansas Department of Public Health, all of those individuals are on our mental health committee. So they'll be given the report that you just did, and they will have an opportunity to utilize that. Dr. Grimes and I co-chair that, but to utilize that as really a guide for the year, to take some items apart in that area and to really kind of use that. So that committee, however, will not meet again until August. Therefore, in the meantime, I would propose 3 things occurring. One, the communications team, Dr. Gray oversees counselors with Dr. Grimes and Ms. Johnston. You know, there's the mental health component, but there's also the academic counseling component. So Ms. Johnston is the assistant principal at TCAC. Of course, Dr. Grimes is over alternative schools and really is kind of the overseer of mental health. And then Dr. Gray, he really focuses more on the elementary end. But for Dr. Gray, since he also works with all of communications, to sit down with the DCAC team members or representatives to just really look at the communication aspect of this. You know, the website where you talked about the counselors having a blank page, whereas this year we asked the social workers had a blank page and they now have a full page. And of course the district has a mental health icon that has a variety of resources, but making sure that consistency is there as we go live July 1st. So I would propose that as an immediate 30-day step. I think a secondary step, again, sending this report to those 3 people who oversee counselors, but mental health is a much broader brush, as you mentioned, CI3T, social workers, and everything else. So we'll be sending this report to the mental health committee Tomorrow is the last day. Administrators meet on the 7th and 8th in their own improvement teams. And so being able to have the report to really look at as they do improvement planning for this upcoming year is a secondary component, so that the mental health team, when they meet again in August and September, that perhaps representatives from the DCAC can come to that very first meeting, because that report can then be a bit of a guide for the next year. The last item that I would propose, because you talked about staff, and as we think about our staffing moving forward and our student base as well, it would be wonderful if there are some representatives from this. Normally the report is done and we always implement things from the report every year. And then you move on to your next topic. I would propose this year that we take another step, and that there perhaps might be 1 or 2 designees from this current research topic that would remain as perhaps liaisons for an accountability measure. Our strategic plan, we put a pin in it 18 months ago. All those other goals still need to be addressed in time. So, as we prepare this year, I'll be proposing that we lengthen the time of the strategic plan. So we're not rushing and throwing some items together, but rather lengthening the time to really explore new items. But if there was a liaison from this current group that would be willing to continue the work alongside the district, so that our health and wellness component of our strategic plan, you'd then be on that committee, and making sure we put components in there. So whoever those individuals might be, that would allow us to just embed this work in part of our system, since we have health and wellness and we have well-being in our strategic plan. So, being able to have that, would those 3 things be things that you feel like are reasonable for DCAC?
I think they probably are. Our incoming president is actually on the meeting today, so she's hearing these comments, and she will have an executive committee that will be meeting in the near future, and I'm sure she'll take these all under advisement and be very open. I see Melissa's just popped up on the camera here. If we can maybe get her unmuted, she may have a couple of words to say there.
And for our DCAC president, it'll probably be good for you and I just to have just to sit and talk, one, about this report, but also your research topic is one that I, the board president, you, and whomever else is on your committee would sit and talk about what's the next research report. But perhaps we can schedule some time in the immediate future within the next 30 days as well.
Sounds good. And I'm sitting here taking notes on all your comments, Dr. Anderson. So we will definitely look forward to appointing someone from the study committee to be a liaison back to the board and the administration.
Thank you. And thank you for the report. Mental health is a major piece of that has been, and trauma-informed practices of our work. And so I'm excited and thrilled, and it is incredibly comprehensive, pretty remarkable. So thank you so much.
Thank you, DCAC. Next on the agenda, there's no action items nor discussion items. So board member comments is next. So Dr. Bonebrake.
I appreciate the DCAC report, but it seems a lot of emphasis is placed on the website and getting information available there. I believe we should have more interpersonal relationships. A student go to a trusted teacher or be directed to the counselor. Website ought to have one page. See your counselor, see your social worker, talk to your teacher, talk to your parents. The fact that a lot of communication is occurring over text messages and such. My son had 3,000 texts in a 10-day period when he was in middle school. We took away his phone. It's just, you spend your time distancing yourself from people instead of talking to them, saying, hi, good morning. I think that leads to mental health issues. And I think we could be teaching these in the classroom along with restorative practices, cut down bullying. A lot of bullies have mental issues or are abused. They don't know their outlets. We have to let them know what their outlets are. They don't need a website or the internet. I'm sorry. That's all I have.
Dr. Morrison.
Not much to say. Want to thank DCAC. As always, they do a very good job. And thank Pam and the foundation for a wonderful golf tournament that we had this afternoon. Fun was had by all. So, yeah. So, thanks to them.
Mr. Munoz.
I think since we last met, we had graduations, which was, high on my mind. And so I just wanted to thank the administration and in particular, Dr. Gray, for all of his hard work in putting it together. It was great to be part of this 2021 graduation. But I think what also touched me was the 2020 graduates who came back after a year of not having missing that from their life, that experience, and seeing students and seeing a student in particular crying as he embraced his parents. I think it really obviously brought back how important that experience was for each one of us and how important it was for the administration to go that extra effort to have this event. And so I thought kudos and thank you to those who put that together. It was important and event for them and a closing of one part of their life and a beginning of another part of their life. So that was great for the students as well as the parents. As well, this week I took part with my daughter who graduated from Scott Dual Language, an amazing program, a shining piece of 501 school district and something we offer here. She moves on to middle school, and so her and I, her mom, my wife and I are obviously worried about what is that going to be like, and she's worried as well. But I think I have no doubt that she'll do fine, and all of our students who move on to that next, whether it's preschool or middle school or high school, I have no doubt that we have incredible teachers, incredible staff and administration who are there to bend over backwards to help them, and they've proven it during this last year, during a pandemic year. So other than that, yeah, that's all.
So if Mr. Robbins is on, he might want to mute, since I'm going to send out a little bit of praise to him. I know he doesn't like the recognition very much, but I just want to thank him for pretty much adopting the 7th grade class at the college prep at DCAC this year. This man bought all of them ties, very professional name tags like the board members have, and jackets as they graduated this year. He made sure that they all had jackets, either with sponsorships, or I wouldn't even be surprised if it wasn't even through himself. Looking at the pride of those students as they graduated this year and you creating that great role model for them, I just wanted to thank you publicly. So now somebody can signal you to turn your computer sound back on. I just thank you for that. Also, we're coming to the end of a remarkable year, and this year could not have happened without our leadership at this level, our teachers, our custodians, our food servers, our bus drivers, all the people that, if we remember as we stepped back at the beginning of this pandemic and we didn't know what we were dealing with, all the heroes that stepped up to make sure that our students were still educated and cared for, and social workers who knocked on doors, and everybody who went that remarkable extra, I was going to say mile, but it was much further than, it was a marathon. And we just thank you so much for making it the best year possible for our students during this time. It was really hard to do, but our community did it. And you are remarkable. Thank you. When we were at graduations that were mentioned before, one of the high schools, that was Topeka High, talked about the scholarships that were given away this year to our students. And I think that should be like gathered at the end of every year. So people know that over $5 million was given in scholarships to just students at Topeka High. And I don't know what the numbers are in the other high schools, but that shows success. Our students are winning scholarships, and there is a lot of them out there that are going to be used in our from our community, and that just strengthens our community. So huge success in a pandemic year. I want to congratulate all of the scholarship winners and all the certificate winners, all the medal winners, all clear down to our preschools that went home with all their graduation certificates, up to our high school that got their graduating certificates. It was a successful year when we didn't know if we could make it a successful year, but it was a pretty incredible year. Congratulations to Topeka High's women's softball team, undefeated all the way. And they brought home all the winning medals for that. Great job. And Miss Ray at Highland Park High School, our first dual certificate, college and high school, going to Washburn University. This is so exciting. I'm so glad to see this program going to expand, to have our first candidate that will be entering this fall. How exciting. I'm just so excited about that. And I also wanted to congratulate Dr. Gordon at McClure. She has been an exceptional employee for us, been with us for a long time, given so much love on her staff and her students, and they love her. They've been celebrating her now since I think they all came back to school from in January or February, whenever we ended up back in school, they have been celebrating her. She is so much loved, and we just thank her for all the efforts that she has put into our TPS family. It was a good year, everyone. We should be proud. Thank you.
Well, first, I would like to assure Mr. Munoz that I was in his shoes last year, thinking of my then 5th grade daughter moving into middle school. So I just want to tell Mr. Munoz that she had a really good year. In fact, she even cried today. I know she's not listening right now. She'd be so mad at me if she knew I said this, but she did, because she was just sad, thinking of missing her teachers, even though she'll see them here in August. She had a good year. And I know our middle schools have, at least my experience, and I'm sure it's across the district, are very good counselors as well. So anyway, yep, she'll be fine. Your daughter will be great. And yes, hallelujah, we made it through the most challenging school year that ever was. It's just amazing, and everything that got accomplished. And I don't need to repeat what everybody knows, because we all lived through it, and it's just amazing. And I would not want my children in any other school district, so besides TPS. I would see what's happening, paying attention in other districts, and I think our district really did the best during this pandemic. So tomorrow is my son's 8th grade promotion, so I'll be attending that at Landon, and I wonder how he'll be, because he got his second vaccine today at the vaccine clinic, and then starting next week at 6 in the morning, Monday through Friday, he'll be doing cross-country practice. I'm like, really? You sure about that? 6 a.m.? Because someone's got to take him, right? And he wants to do it. And so I didn't know until I had a child now going into high school, all the athletic opportunities for our students during the summer. I mean, I didn't know. I know that we offer so much academic, but I was not aware until I'm, experiencing it. There's so many athletic opportunities. Yeah, he had to pick the one at 6 a.m., but there's a whole bunch of other opportunities for athletics, and I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Have a great summer, everyone. Well deserved.
Reverend Williams.
It's been a very long day. A very full day. I attended Pine Ridge's pre-K promotion. 3 of them back to back to back out in the hot sun. Since we last got together, I went to Randolph, and while there, I was invited to join a class that signs. They are studying sign language, but anyway, they had me practice doing the pledges of allegiance and signing, and they videotape it. I hope they destroy the videotape, but I had suggested that they give a Dr. Anderson someone that video be used to do the pledge one time, not with me in it, with the students, but anyway. Also to commend DCAC on that fine report. Made me proud to be a DCAC alum. Yes, it's been a very trying year, but we made it through. And I'm looking forward to the beginning of next school year. And I think we did good. We can pat ourselves on the back. And for all of those who participated in the benefit golf tournament, my hat's off to you. I'm not a golfer. I'm still playing basketball. So, and with that, I will close.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. Just a couple brief updates since we last met. I'm just pleased to announce that my employer and I were able to select 2 students from DCAC to come work for us this summer. So they're starting on Monday morning at 7 o'clock, and they don't get a reprieve. And then one of my colleagues who works in our molecular lab was looking for 2. And so we called Mr. Cathy at Topeka West, and he got in touch with their AP Chem and AP Bio classes and identified 2. He was looking for 1 student, and he interviewed 2 today, and he came back and said they couldn't decide, and he got permission to hire both of them. So I think, assuming they accept it, and we'll have 4 of our students working at Hills Pet Nutrition. I'm pleased to see Reverend Williams running for re-election to the school board. So I think the deadline passed for people to put their name in the hat, and I was pleased to see Reverend Williams run for re-election. I just want to make that known. I think as a board, we ought to think about how we want to proceed with COVID. CDC has relaxed some of their recommendations for people who are fully vaccinated, and how we want to continue to organize ourselves in this format in a meeting. We want to continue to, I think about 15 months ago, where we were meeting remotely, virtually, with bad internet connection one time, as I recall. And we've progressed to this. And are we comfortable taking the next step where we could invite public back and have people come in person to present instead of doing it virtually? I think virtual has worked pretty well, but if we're comfortable with that, I think it's the next logical step. So I'd be willing to not necessarily, you don't need to share your concerns with me publicly, but if you have concerns with that, we might dip our toes in those waters and see our comfort level. I think so anyway, I think we ought to think about that. And I think it's the next logical step given the CDC's guidance, and which is we've followed all along. The last thing, I just wanted to thank our teachers and staff. The last day before school ends, and just think about the year and the resilience they've displayed and flexibility they've displayed to teach our students, whether it's remotely or in person. they've risen to the challenge and overcome the uncertainties that were so clear during this pandemic and uncertain times. So just a huge shout out and thank you to our teacher, staff, administration who've been on the ground floor of teaching our kids. So hopefully they have a wonderful last day of school and enjoy their summer break, and those that get it, and come back refreshed and ready to go in August. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks and adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.